Good morning, and welcome to the book launch of Career Journeys of Diverse Leaders in Higher Education, Climbing the Rough Side of the Mountain, a book project of the Executive Leadership Academy, ELA, at UC Berkeley Center for the Studies in Higher Education, CSHE. I am Janella Butler, a founding fellow and founding faculty of ELA, affiliate faculty at CSHE, and assistant editor of the book and author of the books afterward. I'm also today's moderator. Career Journeys imparts crucial lessons of self-reflection, liberal education, planning, and a strong conviction for diversity and equity as first multicultural servant leaders relate stories of reaching to the top of the mountain while laying the foundation for diverse leadership in higher education. Let me begin by acknowledging several contributors to our project. Patricia Pelfrey, Senior Research Associate Emerita at CSHE, co-wrote the preface, but more important, helped conceptualize the book and did yeoman's work with the authors editing their chapters. Lynn Pascarella, President of the American Association of Colleges and Universities, wrote the foreword, placing the presidential profiles in the context of today's challenges. Samantha Rushing, Associate Director and Executive Assistant of the ELA Board and an Assistant Editor, provided the history of ELA, its advisory board, its accomplishments and challenges, as well as its international reach to India and Ukraine. Dean Joe Curry, former Chancellor of Coast Community College District, distinguished faculty and director of the Leadership Institute of Tomorrow at Cal State U Fullerton, and president of the Lingnan Foundation, is a chapter author and as contributing editor identified and worked with our publisher, Routledge, until the very end. Those registering sent in many questions we will respond to. However, given time limitations, the chat room is not available. There is so much everyone wants to say, so I will do my best to keep us on track so everyone has an opportunity to share their experience and wisdom. Now I will turn to Dr. Josefina Baltodano, Josie, founder and director of ELA and our fearless leader, who George Blumenthal told me he has dubbed our unresistible leader. Josie.
Good morning, everyone. What a delight, what an honor, what a privilege to be with all of you. And a special consideration of appreciation goes out to Janella for agreeing to be our moderator. It's not easy to moderate all of us, and Janella so far has done a wonderful job keeping us on track just to get ready for this morning's talk. I just want to spend a few minutes talking about the Executive Leadership Academy. 14 years ago to the day, a star was born, and that's the Executive Leadership Academy. The individuals that you're going to hear from today have been with the program, with the exception of George Blumenthal, from the very beginning. So they have stories to share about the program as well. But the way that it was born was an interesting, quick little mini story. After I retired from my university presidency of a small Catholic university in the Midwest, I came back to Berkeley, having previously spent 18 years at Berkeley. That was my first tour of duty. Came back to Berkeley, and I had a vision. I was on a mission. Social equity and inclusivity and diversity were very important to me. And so I had this idea that what if we created an academy that focused on how to teach women and men, particularly women and men of color, to go on to be the presidents and chancellors and provosts and deans of their universities, and help them lead in a multicultural and diverse environment. I had been through many of the leadership programs, like many of you that are listening, and they were all wonderful, and I learned a lot, but they were missing a critical element. That was, how do you talk about diversity? How do you talk about social justice and inclusivity in such a way that penetrates through all of the subjects that you teach, not just the topic of diversity and inclusion, but through the budget process, strategic planning, and fundraising, and so on and so forth. And we got together with a group of volunteer faculty that said, yes, we believe in this mission, this vision, and we're going to help you to promote the program going forward. And so we went ahead and created a program that was shaped around 26 executive leadership skills that we all thought and we'd researched were important, and 25 personality traits that not only our research, but also the research of many publications that talked about the leadership traits and the personality traits that were important. So we blended all these together, and we created a curriculum that was focused on 3 different items. 1, how to lead in a multicultural environment, global as well. 2, how to help others be transformative in the work that they did going forward, which was very important. And three, finally, how to continue to mentor and advocate and sponsor the fellows that have gone through the program. So that's what we did. And the first year was everyone was a volunteer, and it was wonderful. And that was 14 years ago. So to date, we have 574 fellows that have graduated, which we're thrilled about. And among those 574 fellows, 80 have gone on to become top executives. And so you'll see many of our in our website and in our books, we talk about some of those wonderful individuals that have gone on to become chancellors, presidents, provosts, and deans. So it was all very exciting. And the best part about this program, again, special thanks to the faculty for helping do this, we went ahead and decided that we were going to do the mirror impact, we call it at Berkeley, which means that we wanted to select a third, a third, a third. A third would be senior faculty members, a third would be executives, and a third would be senior executives. And they would help mentor each other and mirror each other as they went up the ranks. And so that was very exciting for us. So we set about doing that. And then we were very careful, special thanks to the faculty again, we're very careful to recruit, to actually seek out and recruit women and men of a diverse background. And so to that end, we're very proud that of the percentages that we had that have been able to be acknowledged and the outcomes of the people that are in the program. So for example, let me just give you just three little minor little quotes because they're so important. In terms of our diversity, as of 2023, the network consisted of the 574 that I spoke of. 25% are Hispanic Latino, 29% are white, 23% are African American, Black, 12% are Asian Pacific Islanders, and 2% are American Indian Alaska Native. So in addition to providing a curriculum that was very diverse and inclusive, we also had a student body, a faculty body as well, because you'll notice that the faculty that are going to be talking today in the book are individuals that have retired as chancellors and presidents, and they have wonderful stories to tell. That's why the book is so important to us. This is our first ELA book that we've published about the program, and we're focusing on the lives and the stories of the 10 faculty members that are highlighted in the book. You know, this book came about because many of the fellows year after year after year would say, you know, we really want to have all the stories of all the faculty in some sort of a manuscript or a manual because we love hearing the stories and we want to have them in writing. Can you do that for us? And so year after year, we talked about it, but we didn't have time to do it. One year along came George Blumenthal, a brand new director of the center, and said, Josie, it's time to get that book out. Here's what we can do. Let's gas these people each to do a chapter. I said, well, but they want to write their own books. Horace Mitchell, for example, has said to me, Josie, I want to write a book about the African-American male experience. And, you know, so on and so forth. Everybody has ideas. And George says, those are wonderful ideas, Josie, and someday we'll get to them. But for right now, let's crank out this book and have our people that have been outstanding faculty members with us from the beginning, have them write their life stories. Voila, now you have the book. That is the background of how ELA came to be. But I want to make sure you all know, you all acknowledge there's one person we haven't mentioned by name yet, but I want to mention her by name. Sam Rushing is the Associate Director of ELA. Everything that we do through ELA is very, very much made possible through our Associate Director. And I scouted her out. She was a work study student at Berkeley City College one time, and I found her there. She was getting ready to transfer to Berkeley. And I said, you know, you make a wonderful member of our team at ELA. Would you like to come and work with us? And she said, yes, I would. And throughout the years, she got promoted. And finally now she's our associate director and is doing a wonderful job of helping keep all of us on track. So I wanted to make sure to acknowledge Janella. And on that, I think I've said enough about ELA.
Josie, you're over time.
Oh, I'm done.
Yes, you're done.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And now I'd like to introduce George Blumenthal, Chancellor Emeritus, UC Santa Cruz, and former Director of CSAG. As Director of CSAG, George was very supportive of ELA, as Josie has said, of this book project to which he's contributed, and of a unique experience for emerging leaders, Breakfast with George. George?
Thank you so much, Janella. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I want to thank you all for joining us. I'd like to say a little bit about this program that Janella mentioned called Breakfast with George. You can think about it as a graduate program for ELA graduates. It's kind of an advanced degree in the kind of skills that the ELA teaches. It's intended for those very near the top of the academic food chain, presidents, vice presidents, deans, people who will soon be approaching a university presidency. And the point of the program is to discuss issues from the perspective of a university chancellor or a university president. And that perspective may be a little bit different than the participants in the program are used to thinking about from their own particular point of view working at a university. So the president's perspective is important. And I'll give a couple of quick examples. For example, one of the points I make in the program is that it's important in the first year of a presidency to figure out how you want to organize the university administration. There are many different models, many different successful models for how university administrations can work, but it's important for a new university president to choose the one that will work for her or him, for their particular desires. So that's one example. Another is I talk about how you interview for the position of university president, which is a little bit different than how you would interview for other university positions. So the Breakfast with George program is intended for people near university presidencies. We've done this 7 times. We've had 7 cohorts, 42 fellows go through the program. And at this point, I think 7 of them have achieved university presidencies. So I'm very proud of that. The other topic I wanted to touch on very briefly in this introductory section is the target audience for our book. As Josie said just a few minutes ago, this book is the culmination of an effort by ELA fellows over the years to have something in writing, something that talks about the experiences of the people who've been teaching within the ELA program, with the idea of inspiring those students and coming to a better understanding of what challenges they overcame and what they achieved during their active careers. So that's certainly an important audience for the book, but it's not the only audience for the book. I like to think that this book is also intended for young scholars who are thinking about their future academic career and possible paths to leadership within academia. I think this book would also serve that population to see how 10 university presidents have risen through the ranks, achieved their final status, and achieved some success along the way. And I also think even younger students can be inspired by these accounts from individuals who come from a wide range of backgrounds, a very diverse range of backgrounds, including first generation students, including people of color, including people who fit outside the normal or the usual cultural norms. I think it's important to hear the experiences of such a diverse group of leaders. So Janella, with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, George. Now to hear from our authors. First, there are 3 who are unable to be here today. Jen Holmgren, President Emerita of Mills College. Her chapter, One Woman's Path to the Presidency of Mills College, details her journey to match her values to her work for diversity, equity, and excellence. Ding Jo Curry, I introduced earlier. Her chapter, The Pathfinding Asian Woman President, serves as a primer for all who must navigate their differences and those of others. And Elnora Webb, President Emerita Laney College, discusses the significance of strategic navigation of the complexities of identity and opportunities. In the order that the chapters are in the book, I now turn to our first author to speak, who is George again. George Blumenthal, Chancellor Emeritus, UC Santa Cruz, and former Director, CSHE. George.
Thank you so much, Janella. My chapter has an interesting title, at least to me. I called it Seizing the Moment, How a First-Generation Astrophysics Student Made an Impact as a Leader of a Major Research University. And we were asked, each of the authors was asked to highlight something about their career and to talk about their reflections of what they kind of learned about themselves in writing this chapter. And so in terms of thinking about highlights, to me, the highlight of my career and of my desires was the real desire that I had to make a lasting impact on the quality and the diversity of the university during my 13 years as chancellor. That included such things as hiring and promoting outstanding faculty, which improved our research profile, made the campus much more appealing to students. It also garnered more national and international attention for the campus, and this placed us in a position to be selected ultimately to join the exclusive American Association of Universities, which is an important achievement for the campus. The other goal that I just mentioned was increasing the diversity of the university. And we were able to make significant progress there. We increased the percentage of underrepresented minorities on the campus by half. And we're able to achieve Hispanic serving institution relatively early during my tenure. And this allowed us to get grants from the federal government, grants that are only available to Hispanic serving institutions. And those grants benefited our students to allow us to create programs that are student-centric and improve the success of underrepresented students within the university. And I might also note that by the time I retired from the chancellorship, we had the highest percentage of underrepresented minority faculty in the UC system. In terms of reflections, my reflection really comes back to the title, Seizing the Moment. And because I noticed in writing my chapter that throughout my career, when opportunity came knocking at my door, I answered it and seized that opportunity. I think we all have such opportunities, and it's important to seize them and to find a way to make a real impact as you go on to the next level of your career. This was true for me in my research career, where at one point I changed my entire research direction based on an insight that I got from a discussion with a colleague. And that change in my research career led to some of the absolutely most productive research that I did throughout my career. But it was also true in other areas as well. I seized on an opportunity to write a textbook, and that book is now about to go into its 8th edition. I took on leadership roles in the academic senate when there were sudden opportunities both to take on important roles and to take on leadership position within the academic senate. So I ultimately chaired the senate on both my campus and for the UC system. And when the chancellor's position at UC Santa Cruz suddenly opened up and suddenly became vacant, and I was offered the position, I seized that opportunity with a determination to make a difference, not just to occupy the position, but to know that when I left that position, I will have made an important difference for the institution. And each of those steps provided for me real opportunities to have a major impact. And having such a major impact is a great source of satisfaction and provides a great feeling of accomplishment.
Great, George. You have one more minute if you'd like to say more.
No, that's okay. I probably talked faster than I should.
Okay. Josie Baltodano, former president, Marian University, and founder and executive director of UC Berkeley's Executive Leadership Academy. Josie.
Thank you so much, George. Wonderful presentation. You led the way. You set the bar very high for all of us. The title of my chapter is called Hispanic Culture, Faith, and Leadership, a University President's Path from Philanthropy to Promoting Diversity and Inclusivity. In response to the question that Janella has posed for us to think about, for me, it's very clear that from the beginning of my career, raising money was of interest to me. Philanthropy was a very interest to me. Part of it had to do with the fact that I really saw my parents work so hard in the community to give back to those who had less than us. And the community would share their resources with us because we had a large family and we were low income. So it was a reciprocal type of a situation. And so I grew up with that kind of feeling. That's what I wanted to do. And when I think about the one area or the one topic that really had an impact My whole entire career was at UC Berkeley. I had spent 18 years in my first tour of duty at Berkeley, and then I came back to do ELA for a total of 32 years at Berkeley. So Berkeley's been my home for a long, long time. And at the very core of my work at Berkeley was learning how to raise money, philanthropy, also giving money away that I raised. And I will share with you that the reason that came about was I was at the time an assistant department head, and I wanted to be a department head, but I didn't have the knowledge of how to raise funds. And so Berkeley was going into its first campaign, trying to raise about around $400 million. As of last week, Berkeley closed many, many campaigns, but the most recent campaign that Berkeley closed it at $7+ billion. So the first campaign was of great interest, and I'm proud to say I was right there at the beginning. One day I decided to go talk to the chancellor. It was Michael Heyman at the time, and I said, Chancellor Heyman, I want to learn how to raise money because I can't be a department chair or go up the ladder or be a president or a chancellor like you someday unless I learn how to raise money. So he said, okay, I will go ahead and sponsor you and I'll help you. So he went ahead and paid for me to take a year of a fellowship experience at the development office, working with the brand new vice chancellor of advancement that had just been hired for the first campaign. So lo and behold, that's what I spent my year learning how to raise money. But embedded with that, imbued with that, was this idea that I didn't just want to raise money. I wanted to raise it to help really eradicate social justice issues and equity. At the time, I was working on TRIO programs, and I realized how much our low-income first-generation students needed additional resources. So I wanted to learn how to raise money from private donors, class campaigns, the works, but I wanted to direct it at how to promote diversity and inclusivity. That was my goal. So it absolutely changed my life, because after I returned back to my assistant director's position, and I went to my director, I said, now that I have this new knowledge, I can't wait to apply it. And he said to me, well, Josie, that's my job. You really have this new skill, but you're going to have to figure out another way to apply it, because you don't need to do my job. So I felt, okay, that's fine. I understand. I know you want job security. So I went outside of Berkeley to get the experience and to apply the work that I had learned at Berkeley of how to raise money. And so it was because of that experience of going outside of Berkeley that I could then help Berkeley internally as well at the same time, which has been the story of my life and my career. Because wherever I've gone, whatever I've done, I've always tried to figure out a way, how do I bring the community in? How do I go outside to the community to support and to raise funds for groups, equity groups that need some support? So that definitely was a turning point for me, because from there going forward, every position that I was after or looking for came actually looking for me first. And they came looking for me because I had an ability and a reputation of raising a lot of money. By the time I became a president, I had worked on 14 capital campaigns, 8 of which I have led. So it was a real strong sense of pride for me to be able to go in to become a president of a Catholic university that really needed my help, and to be able to use fundraising as a vehicle, as a venue for helping others raise the funds that were needed. So in reflecting upon that, it's absolutely what turned my life around and what helped me going forward, where I need to go next. One of the things that ELA has been so helpful in terms of how I applied and reflecting, how did I apply what I learned way back when raising money to ELA? Well, absolutely. For example, with the ELA program, we wanted to go international. And so thanks to Shiv Nadar, Vice Chancellor, who was Rupa, and Rupa is one of our authors that we're highlighting, we had an opportunity to go to India to take the ELA program. But thanks to my interest and with George's support and being able to bring the money together, and Rupa, of course, was instrumental in doing it, so that ELA could go to India. It was wonderful.
Josie, wrap up, please.
Okay. And now the next one will be Ukraine. We're working with Ukraine and we're going forward. So that'll give you 2 examples of how I applied what I learned then to ELA and the work that would need to be done there. Thank you, Janela.
Thank you, Josie. And now, Rupa Manjari Ghosh, the former Vice Chancellor, Shiv Nadar University, Delhi, India, and former professor of physics and the Dean of School of Physical Science at Nehru University in New Delhi. And it's midnight for you, Rupa, is it not? Okay, you're okay, unmute. There you are. It's midnight for you. So thanks for being with us and being awake.
Yeah, the charge in this room is is helping me keep awake. Really a great privilege. Thank you very much. I called my chapter Creative Leadership in Institution Building, the unconventional journey of a woman quantum physicist in India. I'll be brief and give you a flavor because I'd like you to read the chapter. But before I do that, let me say that I've been really fortunate to be associated with the first international ELA, Executive Leadership Academy of the Center for Studies in Higher Education of Berkeley. And we hosted it at Shiv Nada University in November 2021. And the program was directed by Josie, and it was steered by George on the theme of leading in a multicultural and global environment. Josie and George prompted me to share my story. And it's my privilege to be present in this launch event. So the most important takeaway from my experience is perhaps this, that when your passion, that is what you love, your mission, that is what your professional world needs, your vocation, that is what you are good at, and your profession, what you can get paid for. If all these four things converge for you, life becomes purposeful. And I was actually lucky that this happened. And this is probably the most important takeaway. When you try something that sincerely, this normally happens. On my reflection, there are some things I knew about my way of working. But while writing this story, it was hard, but I sort of did it in one go. I realized a lot more about myself. So I think, like my readers, hopefully they would enjoy. I enjoyed writing this beyond a point. Initially, it was hesitation. So essentially, I'm a product of a generation where some of us have made it in spite of the system and not because of the system. And this led to my determination to change this for my next generation. That's where I come from. I switched from a secure position in a central government funded university to a newly established privately funded university. It was challenging for many, many reasons. And in this chapter, I've shared this experience. While building this new institution and a new community, I saw my role as hands-on, minds-on, and hearts-on. So while I was involved with my people at the individual level, I was confident about my ability to manage scale and complexities across intra and interinstitutional functions. Now, there are many reflections really, but I must say this much. Starting from the idealism and optimism that I think I inherited from my family and my background, I've been kind of self-driven with the desire to impact the lives of people. So creative leadership was the only way forward in this large, complex, and mostly unexplored higher education scene in India. So what it means really is the ability to generate innovative solutions, especially in the face of complex or changing situations. And I've been fortunate to see the effects of my efforts in real time. The point I would like to end with is something that I've been asking myself maybe throughout my career. Can you teach or learn leadership? Are leaders born or made? While leadership traits come naturally to some people, you saw 3 examples already before me, and some more are coming. So leadership traits come naturally to some people, like the ones you are seeing today. But I think these traits can be inculcated, and the ELA program actually does that for all participants, and you'll get a flavor of all the stories in this book. So how do you improve in the practice of leadership? So like everything else to get better at, you need to constantly improve on 3 elements: knowledge, skills, and attitude. And more once you read this chapter. And thank you very much for having me in this launch event.
Thank you so much, Rupa. And next, we have Alex Gonzalez, President and Professor Emeritus, Cal State University, Sacramento. Alex.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I think what I enjoyed about the not only about writing the chapter but also reading everybody else's work. It made me, it reinforced for me the decisions that I've made in my career all along, and to be part of the ELA and to work alongside people with such a broad background and experience, and being able to share it with students is very important. One of the things that I wanted to do this morning is first share some personal reflections. Number one, I'm the prototype Latino, and my title is A Latino's Perspective, Diversity, Ethnicity, and Race in American Higher Education. So it's very appropriate that I look at that. First generation Latino, native Californian. I ended up almost by serendipity and by chance becoming a university president at 2 universities. I was a university president for 18 years, a provost for another 6. So what started out as a faculty member position turned at one point, as the faculty like to say, I went to the dark side. And 24 years later of being in higher ed, I can sit back and reflect on what I did and how I did it. The other, I hope you read the book from cover to cover, and I hope you recommend it to other people, because I think what you'll find in there is really, really important in terms of not only what it can do for you, but what it can do for others, but especially higher ed. I've worked with a lot of students over the years, a lot of people who aspired to the presidency, and they've made it. They still stay in touch with me after all this time and seek out my advice, whether it's good or bad. But that's what it is. But the main takeaway for the chapter that I wrote, and I'm cognizant of the time, is that while things are changing in higher education, the change is very, very slow. It's a slow process. As the country's population changes, there are more and more students who are seeking higher education opportunities. Leadership must change as well. That's why I introduced the chapter, if you read it carefully, with the findings from the ACE study that they do on the presidency. Organizations, for me, they're very, very similar, whether a small institution, a large institution. And as George pointed out, there are many, many models of administrations that are both effective and ineffective. But organizations go through a process of change that's almost inexorable. And they're always going to be caught in the context of the current history that they're in. And if you don't change and develop with the times, institutions will fail. Over the years, we've seen many institutions with cases that cease to exist, or they're being subsumed by larger, more successful enterprises. However, some institutions develop and change more quickly than others, and these are the ones that are going to succeed in the long term. There are always forces at work, and I bring this out in the chapter, both at the personal level and its institutional and the social and political level, that are going to try to impede change and the accommodation of the needs of our society. For example, even during the last few days, you've seen some legislatures pass legislation to dismantle the DEI efforts in their states. So more than ever, I think higher education needs leaders who are going to be sensitive to the changing environment and the changing student population. And from my perspective, we cannot be prey to the rubber band effect. I'm a social psychologist, and the rubber band effect is one of the axioms of my discipline. It's simple. We can stretch, we can change somebody's attitudes and perspectives, and they will, we can stretch them and then people will change. But the moment that you lose control or you're not vigilant anymore, it'll snap back just like a rubber band. So that's the most important thing for me. My story is interesting, I hope, that it provides some interesting outcomes for someone who didn't have higher education in their perception at all, as you'll see in the book. I mean, I went into the military right after high school. I was born and raised in LA, and here I ended up being a university president. If somebody would have told me that when I was in high school, or even as an undergraduate, I would have said, you're nuts. However, the issue is that we need a more diverse, sensitive, and goal-directed leadership. And what is needed now, it's needed more than ever. It's needed for higher education, but more important, it's needed for the country. And I think that's where ELA can have an impact by training leaders, preparing them to take on these roles. Will be successful. And by the way, I'm still a volunteer.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
And you brought the perspective that all of us share as to how our experiences can be of use today in this time when higher education is under attack, very much so. Thank you. Cassandra Manuelito Kirkleet, President Emerita of Antioch University, Seattle, and the first woman president of Dena College, the first tribally controlled community college located on 8 campuses across the Navajo Nation. Cassandra.
Thank you. My title is The American Indian Woman Breaks Through Barriers to Reach Higher Education Leadership, My Climb to the Highest Rung. And what I do is I stay consistent with my background. So I am the great-great-granddaughter of Chief Manuelito, who was the chief of the Navajo people. And when he signed the treaty in 1868, the translation of a profound statement he made resonates for me. And that is, education is the ladder to success. Tell my children to climb the ladder. And I have done that in a modern way by taking this weapon that we had to put down, our guns, and to quit, the fighting with the approaching non-Indian people. My modern day weapon is education. And that has been the breakthrough for me to become a president and a leader. In my chapter, I give you an understanding of how I take my Navajo way of knowing, of living, of the Navajo principles, and I use them in my leadership. I don't hide it. It's a real risk to be in a non-Indigenous higher education institution like Antioch, but it was also a risk at Dena College, which is the name of Navajo's community college at that time, which is now a 4-year university called Dena College. When I came to Dena College, I had a hyphenated name that Janella just used, Manuelito Kirkleet. So I was born into the Navajo people's, my world, but I also married, I say fondly, I married into the Dutch tribe, so Kirkleet. So imagine going back to the Navajo reservation with this hyphenated last name and going to the white schools and being an outsider when I'm an insider. So I take these understandings of my Navajo-ness and I explain in the book and share how I take these concepts of harmony, of taking care of oneself, of having respect for relatives, but it's really, these relatives are like our family, these institutions, and I shape them and use these concepts of Navajo principles to run my leadership or to expand, what people at Antioch would not know about how to be in relationship in a higher education institution. So I'm hoping that as someone reads chapter 7, my chapter, that you can take your own backgrounds. All these cultural groups have teachings, and I want people to know that you don't have to hide it, or you don't have to be use it, have it come out just when it's convenient or safe. I used it all the time because I had to be an authentic leader, and I had to lead with what I knew. My training is in counseling, so I think that really was a big help to me in my leadership, because I was always looking at the broader family. Oops. There's my 4 minutes.
Right ahead. Thank you.
Okay. That's it. Excuse me.
You have a little bit more time, Cassandra.
Okay.
1
Anyway,
minute.
I wanted to say that it takes all of us, and especially like was said earlier, in critical times when diversity, inclusiveness are an issue, we really need to see the leadership reflect what is happening with the population of students coming to higher education. And I'm a firm believer in education. And, I say I lay the framework. I want others who read this to just take and expand on it using your own cultural background. Thank you.
Thank you, Cassandra, very much. Okay, next is Horace Mitchell, President Emeritus, Cal State University, Bakersfield. Horace.
Thank you very much, and good morning again, everyone. The title of my chapter is From Segregation in Mississippi to University Leadership in California: Seizing Opportunities, Making a Difference, and Paying It Forward. And all three of those, seizing opportunities, making a difference, and paying it forward, is something that runs through my whole 50-year career in higher education. And in fact, when we were talking about earlier in our session here, whether the dress was business or not, Shirley asked me, what would Ruth Pippins say? And I would tell you that among the outstanding group of role models, mentors, and sponsors that I've had from the very beginning and throughout my career, and even in high school, were people like Ruth Pippins, Shirley's mother-in-law. And we talk about her from time to time. Also, one of the aspects of my own thinking about the world and myself and how to deal with things was a poem that I learned, and I think it was in middle school, and that poem was Invictus. And I want to take a second, a couple minutes, a little bit, to read that poem. It's a poem by William Ernest Hensley. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank my God. Now it says, I thank whatever gods may be, and I change that to, I thank God for my unconquerable spirit. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. By the grace of God, I am the master of my faith and the captain of my soul. And so I remember that poem from time to time because it talks about my own spirit of thinking that I can get things done and that I have a responsibility to help other people get things done. Now, it mentioned just two people very quickly. When I became the first person of color to be the vice chancellor for student affairs at UC Irvine in 1984, the first person that I hired was Dr. Thomas Parham, who is now the president of Dominguez Hills, Cal State Dominguez Hills. And also the first person that I hired to be my provost at CSU Bakersfield is now the president and has been for about 7 years now, the president of Cal Poly Pomona. And so those are just two examples, but wherever I am, I recognize a responsibility that I have to use my role to help people get better and to bring people into my circle who have the capacity to do things that would be supportive of the whole enterprise. A reflection on writing the chapter. Before I retired 6 years ago, my engagement as an ELA faculty member and member of the ELA advisory board led me to the decision that I should write a book on leadership and management in higher education. And I used the writing of my chapter as the starting point for an outline of my book. Now, I'd have to admit that I haven't made a whole lot of progress beyond that chapter, but that chapter is really important to me. And I know that I will begin to work on that book as soon as I drop several other things that I'm involved in. One of those being what is called the Elder of Elders of the Association of Black Psychologists. And that's a senior leadership role within that particular organization. And one of the people who introduced me to that organization was one of the founders, Dr. Robert L. Williams, who by coincidence returned to Washington University, where he had earned his PhD in psychology in 1961. He returned as professor of psychology and the first director of the Black Studies program. And so when I completed my doctorate with certainly some insights from Dr. Williams, I had an appointment. I was given an appointment at Washington University, which I considered to be my ideal appointment, as assistant professor of education, where counseling psychology was located, and Black Studies. And then 2 years later, I was appointed, well, 3 years later, I was appointed director of Black Studies. And that again was consistent with what was important to me.
Horace, can you wind it up, please? I'm sorry.
But of course.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
You can end it. Would you?
Okay. All right. So as I said, writing this chapter was very important to me because it allowed me to complete a significant part of the outline for what it is that I plan to do over the next 2 or 3 years in terms of writing a book on leadership and management in higher education.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We look forward to that for sure. So give up the other challenges that you're involved in.
I've been trying.
And now Shirley Pippins, um, whose mother-in-law is a mentor to Horace, right?
Yes.
She is senior research consultant and former senior vice president at American Council of Education, ACE. And her most recent presidency, she's had several, was at Suffolk County Community College. Shirley.
Thank you, Janella. And in many ways, it's fitting that I would come behind Horace because my mother-in-law bragged about him. And of course, she was instrumental in my life. The title of my chapter was Divinely Ordered Steps to Leadership, Position for Purpose. And I like to think that the title tells the story in many ways. It's a powerful experience to look at your life through the rearview mirror while you're still driving. I grew up behind my father's store, next door to a liquor store. My dream was to be a math teacher. I never dreamed of being a college president, never seen one, never met one. Yet not only did I serve as a president one time, I served 3 times as president, and as Janella indicated, as the senior vice president at ACE. So it's both humbling and inspiring for me as a religious person to reflect on the many points in my life where I knowingly, unknowingly, thoughtfully, whimsically, or foolishly made a choice, or had a privilege or an experience that had a powerful impact on my life. I would point to 4 experiences. First, one weekend, I went to the library with my dad, and I read a book that contained the word umbrella. In reading circle the next week, the teacher asked, "Does anybody know this word?" My hand shot up. All that praise and recognition, I say I was hooked on praise from that moment on. My family was actively involved in the church, and so Sundays began with Sunday school. My favorite uncle, as we say in the Black community, he voluntold me as a teacher and secretary of the Sunday school. Those experiences began my preparation as a speaker, standing before groups, nervous and scared, making presentations with increasing effort and comfort. As a teenager, I was, and you can't laugh at this, I was a leader and member of the Future Homemakers of America. So I traveled all over Southern Indiana, often as the only one, the only person of color. And this positioned me to attend a college and assume major leadership roles where once again, I was the only one. I graduated from high school the first year of the National Merit Scholarship Program for Outstanding Negro Students. I was a finalist, and that opened up doors, ultimately leading me to the University of Illinois and a major leadership role in a national Head Start model. These experiences changed my life. Did I have control in any of these contexts or in any of these situations? Absolutely not. I believe they were divinely ordered and they positioned me for purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley, very much. It's quite a task for everyone to speak of your extremely rich chapters in so short of time. And you're really talking about your extremely rich lives. I like, Shirley, that you said you're looking at your life in the rear mirror while still driving. That's exactly what you're all doing, very much so. Now we will move to the Q&A section. We have assigned one of 8 questions that registrants submitted. And since there's 7 of you, I will take one. So we'll begin with Cassandra. And the question, Cassandra, for you is that someone sent in. When I tell colleagues that I study non-male presidents of colleges and universities, they often ask, what are the benefits of having women leaders? What would you say are the benefits to the institutions, community members, and to higher education as a whole?
That for me is very easy to answer because in my Navajo understanding and Navajo way of looking, women are the top leaders. It's a given. The men follow behind. But as I look at women leaders, I think we look much more broadly at the human being, that our institution, our workers, and we really are taught to be have the duty of looking out for those human beings that I call it. Women just have this resilience and this tenacity to be looking at the whole picture, looking at everyone in the family, say like a family. So I think it's just, it's so easy for women to co-lead with men, to listen to the men, but I think we run households, we manage budgets, and so we're just doing it at a grander scale. And it was just something that was inherent in my culture, that women were the top leaders. And I look at it as it's just something that we believe is our duty to take care of the human being.
All right. So the benefit is to all society and taking care of human beings and having that perspective that's often not there. The next question I thought was perfect for Rupa. What are the most challenging goals to achieve in higher education?
Thank you. I'll answer it in two parts. For the system of higher education as a whole, the most challenging goal has been to ensure the three things: quality, access, and affordability. Affordability, by that I mean fees comparable to the per capita GDP of the country. In a fair system, the university should mirror the society at large, the eligible part of the country's demography. So that's for the system. But for individual institutions, the eternal challenge has been navigating the fine line between safeguarding and promoting individuals' freedom of thought, expression, autonomy, and anarchy. So that's the fine line. And I think we are seeing examples of that even today. That's a very big challenge. And while institutions are to be held accountable, it has been a challenge to build an atmosphere where rules of the system do not suffocate creativity and excellence. People will tell you that the most challenging goals are related to financial sustainability, how to increase student enrollment, et cetera, et cetera. But I choose to highlight the challenge of intellectual sustainability. How do we select and retain the right kind of people? The goal is to prepare the students for a future which is unknown. Student well-being is a constant challenge. So my focus will be the challenge to take head-on the challenge of hiring the right kind of faculty, working with them shoulder to shoulder, and retaining them by empowering them to do their work in the best possible way. And it's also, of course, important for the faculty to have avenues of recharging and stay lifelong learners. So that's the broad system and the individual system challenges for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And in your chapter, you show how you're much rooted in liberal education and interdisciplinarity, which really moves to the answer of that question as well, which is what you're talking about in many ways. And that's a challenge for all of us.
Yes. Yes.
Well, thank you. Alex, how did your unique personal background influence your approach to leadership in higher education as the bien educado?
Bien educado. That's, I think those are the two key words. And that really leads into my answer. Number one, I think my family background, where I was raised in LA. I was born and raised there in a traditional Mexican family. I think my time in the Air Force as a very young man, in fact, I was a boy at 17, I joined after I graduated from high school. I think all of that was a crucible that shaped my view and set the path to the success that I did have, if I had any. I learned the importance of leadership, but I also learned to be a good follower and, most importantly, a good team member. Like so many of the students that I worked with, I sought to do better and reach the next rung on the ladder, whatever that may be. As a result, I was able to relate to students and to parents and to people generally on a level that they felt comfortable with, and the communication skills that I developed were really, really broad. It wasn't just academic. I went through the faculty process and got tenure and did the whole thing. But when it came down to it, I think the communication skills and being able to relate to people at their level was most important. I was not an ivory tower president. I led with empathy. And more than anything, I was approachable. And I would go out and seek interactions with students. I'd walk around the campus and students would see me and, hey, how you doing, President? Da, 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 da. You know, and they would tell me things about them personally. I think maybe being a psychologist helped as well. But I think more importantly, being a Latino at that time allowed the Latino students that I worked with and other students as well, when they saw somebody like me, it gave them the confidence that they could achieve what they set as their goals as well. And I would tell them that, you know, you can do anything you want to do. And because my background and experiences, I was aware and sought to engage and treat everyone with understanding and respect. And that's critical. From the groundskeepers that I would see in the morning, and luckily for me, I'm bilingual, so I would be able to speak to them in Spanish, to the millionaires that I met when I was doing the job that Josie talks about, raising money and getting support for the university. But I think my wife, it's important here because she was just like me. And we still work together as a team, even after all these years. And we still look and try to achieve the same kind of goals. So in sum, the important point is I could relate to people at their level, and that led to support of the university and the development of many friendships that have endured today. Just be yourself.
Thank you. And that's such a message from many of the authors in this book, to know who you are and build on who you are. Don't be afraid to do that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. George, what common values or lessons did you find were shared among the 10 leaders profiled in the book, despite their diverse paths and experiences?
Yeah, thanks, Janella. You're right. The leaders in this book do have diverse experiences that we all bring to our lives. And yet, look around this Zoom session. The people in this room are amazing. Every leader in this book, none of them came from real privilege. They were minority. They come from minority populations. They're first generation students, first generation in their families to go to college. They're culturally unique, and some of them have all of those characteristics. So this is not a privileged group, and yet every single person in this book talks about their profound commitment to quality and to inclusion in their work. If you read the chapters, that's one of the messages that clearly comes across. And all of them, every single one of these authors, can point to major accomplishments that they've achieved in their presidential roles, as well as in their teaching and their research and their public service. This is a group that developed leadership insights as they went through their various experiences in life. And every single one of them, every single one of us, I should say, was absolutely committed to giving back, to providing the kind of advice, mentoring, and support to others that we each received earlier in our own lives. That's why everyone in this group has been so committed to participate in the Executive Leadership Academy. And I think it's that kind of commitment that binds us all together.
That's wonderful. Thank you, George. It's kind of the mindfulness as you look in that rearview mirror as you continue to do your work. Thank you very much. Horace, can you discuss a specific instance? The question is, can you discuss a specific instance where overcoming racial or gender inequities shaped your leadership journey?
Yes, and let me start by backing up a little bit to say that my chapter opens up with a statement about the fact that I was born in a segregated little town in Mississippi, and that one of the things that was happening during that time was a lot of hangings around the state and other places. And one instance in particular, which was the hanging and killing of let's see, all of a sudden I'm blanking at his name. Emmett Till. I'm sorry, Emmett Till. About 48 miles from where we live, that led my parents to say, we need to leave Mississippi and go somewhere else. And the somewhere else was St. Louis. And so in being there and having various experiences, I found that issues of racial and gender inequality were ever present. And I could go through a litany of these things, but one of the things that hit me right away was that as my wife and I, my wife of now almost 58 years, were getting married, we were looking for a place to rent. And there was a place in South St. Louis that looked ideal and we could afford it. And so we went over to take a look at it. And the person said, oh, that's already been rented. And as it turned out, it had not already been rented. And somebody came behind us and rented it. And so that kind of discrimination was something that I experienced very often, not just in that particular instance. Even in those instances where I moved up significantly. When I was appointed Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs at UC Irvine, one of our major donors told some people that, oh, he's our new Vice Chancellor for Minority Affairs. And I said, no, it's not for minority student affairs, it's for all student affairs. And that sort of thing comes up from time to time. And certainly, as other speakers have said, in our roles as presidents and moving toward the presidency, we always wanted to have our people know that the door was open and you had to just, well, the door wasn't always open, but that we wanted to prepare them for opportunities that they were interested in that might come up for them in the future. And was that the signal?
You have just a few minutes. It's time to wrap up. Okay.
Okay. All right. So there were many places where I was the first, but like many people have said, I wanted to make sure that I would not be the last. And so every place that I've been, someone who reported to me has moved to at least one person every instance have moved to the positions that I had because of the preparation that they got and because of my emphasis in making sure that people were not disadvantaged because of their race or because they were females. And that's been important to me all along. And one of the things that I say now is that I continue to have a strong commitment to mentoring people, especially women and people of color, who are interested in higher level positions in higher education, because that's what it takes from all of us. And all of the other speakers have talked very well about how it is that the ELA has a commitment here, and we share, all of us, in that commitment. And so, that's what we do.
Thank you so much. And what you're speaking about really is something that cuts across everyone here. Generous leadership, generosity in your leadership, sharing your leadership. Josie, What advice would you give to individuals from underrepresented groups who may doubt their potential to reach senior leadership roles in higher education?
Thank you, Jill. That's a wonderful question for me because that's what I do in the 3 days out of the week when I'm not running ELA at Berkeley, and that is that serve as an executive coach with Archer Martin Associates. And because of that, the advice I'm going to share, I think, is tried and true. 40 of my clients have become presidents and chancellors and provosts that I've coached over the last 14 years. And they're, very, very motivated. And so the advice that I'm going to share with all of you that are listening is as follows. Being authentic is very critical, very, very critical. Now, you're probably going to ask the question, what does authenticity means? It means something unique for every individual. Always being clear of head, pure of heart when you make decisions as a person that's wanting to go up the ranks, and you're having some, situations that come up, just like Horace mentioned, and Alex and all of us have had situations that have had an impact on us, but not to the point where it sets us back. I call them hiccups in the road. They're hiccups in the road because, there are things that bother you, but we don't want them to completely destroy you. It's what you do when you stand up when things happen to you. That's what really makes a difference. In the words of Cardinal Timothy Dolan, be not afraid, which was the topic of my homily when I was university president. Be not afraid to take a risk. Be not afraid to be bold. Be not afraid. It's not easy being a person of color. I often when I talk about my own Latinx background, I often talk about the fact that, it's a plus. It's a plus to come from a different culture. It depends on what culture you come from, but it's always a plus because you're bringing a unique set of characteristics that no one else can bring to the table. And so being transparent, being honest, being authentic, those are critical factors as you go up the ladder. And always surround yourself with positive people, positive mentors, like the individuals that have been talking with you today and sharing their stories. It's very important. The faculty in ELA, which we really treasure and hold in the highest regard, they're all servant leaders, like the ones that have been talking today. They're people that continue to care about you and mentor you and help you as you go up the ladder. So for those of you that are listening, I would encourage you to reach out to individuals that are positive and well-meaning, and as Janella pointed out, generous of spirit. So that's how I would, respond to your question, Janella.
Thank you, Josie, very much.
You're welcome.
Shirley, now the question for you is a big one, as they all are, but how do you believe the narratives in this book can be used to foster discussions about justice, equity, and inclusion in leadership development programs?
So thank you, Janella. I think I would approach this as if I were using it in one of those situations, in a classroom perhaps, or in a leadership development program. And I would suggest that you begin by studying and analyzing the lives of the impressive leaders that are in this group. For context, just reflect on the contributions they've made and think about what would have been lost to our communities and to our nation had they not had the opportunity, and I would add the resilience to overcome obstacles. George touched on this a little bit, but what are the common threads? What are the defining characteristics? What are the shaping experiences that these leaders had? And spend time reflecting on the obstacles that they face, both structural and non-structural. And then I would start to think about, in your own institution, in our institutions, which of these obstacles still exist for students, even if they exist in different forms. And at the institutional level, perhaps create a checklist and conduct an institutional assessment. Work from the results of that assessment and determine how you and your institution can eliminate some of those obstacles. And I think even more important, how do you build that resilience? Because we know the students are going to encounter obstacles. How do we build resistance so the students are prepared to do that? The next thing that I would encourage, and this is on a personal level, it's personal reflection, because we all think we're good. We all think we don't cause problems. We're all working for the greater good. How are you, knowingly or unknowingly, even with a good heart, contributing to obstacles to student success? And I provide this context. When I transferred to the University of Illinois from a small liberal arts institution in northern Wisconsin, The counselor there, who I'm sure thought he was doing good work and had a good heart, looked at me and said, I think he was trying to prepare me to not be so successful. And he said, don't think you're going to be as successful here at the University of Illinois as you were at that little school. I want to find him today and tell him I graduated Phi Beta Kappa. That message, no one would have ever, he never thought he was being negative. He thought he was doing something to help me. And sometimes we do things like that and we aren't aware of the impact.
Wow. My comment is wow. That's it. Resilience, generous leadership, self-analysis, building on your own background. We have a little bit of time. And so I'm wondering, since you were so limited in your time, as I was trying to get you to keep to our time frame, are there final comments that any of you would like to make about your chapters or your responses to the questions? Something that you didn't get to say that you'd really like to share? Yes, Horace.
Yes.
Shirley, did you have your hand raised?
No.
Okay.
I would say that the exceptional group of people that we have as faculty members and board members of ELA and the leadership of ELA has made a major difference in higher education, even in the relatively short time that it's been here. And I certainly will continue to support people and to suggest to them that this is one of the best professional development programs in the country, even knowing and being aware of many others. But here, people care, and they are committed to developing leaders who have the kinds of qualities that we've been talking about during this program.
Thank you. Thank you. And your moderator forgot that she was supposed to answer a question. So, so Janella, who will be this generation's Horace Mann? The 19th century representative Horace Mann advocated for compulsory education as necessary in a democratic society. He also advocated for free elementary school education for all and founded the normal school to prepare elementary teachers. He opposed also the expansion of slavery. A present-day advocacy for education in our democratic society, as I've been thinking about it, may well be benefited by the Horace Mann model. However, to realize the goal of education for all in today's context takes more than one person and a few followers. I suggest that we require a coalition of educators, community leaders, national leaders, and dedicated informed activists to act concertedly and over time with citizens and local, state, and national politicians to create a template for education in our multicultural and multiracial society. We haven't had a multicultural and multiracial society that we've tried to really educate, and we know that connection to maintaining democracy. And finally, a personal testimony to Mann's normal school idea. My two great aunts, Justina and Catherine Spencer, themselves the children of former slaves, completed normal school, and in the late 19th century, Henry County, Virginia, founded the Antioch Church School that educated numerous children of freed slaves and some of their formerly enslaved parents. So that's the response to my question. And I would think we have just a little more time. If anyone else, one other person might want to say something before Josie closes it out for us. Yes, Alex.
Yeah, I just, for the listeners who are joining us, when I retired, and I think it's common for most of us, people would ask me, gee, what are you going to do now? How are you going to stay busy? And I think this morning's session really exemplifies the fact that there's a lot of wisdom, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of energy still with people that have had successful careers or, have been in higher ed for a long time. Each perspective is different, but each perspective is important. And it continues to go on, even though all of us are doing other things. So I think the people who signed in today and listened to this, if you take anything away from this, it's that, it just doesn't end. You're always involved. You're always involved in society. You can still have an impact. And listening to some of us older folks really has a benefit.
Thank you. Shirley, you had your hand raised, and then Cassandra.
I thought I might also add, we often talk about the fact that one person can make a difference. And I would just point to the fact that look at what Josie has done, putting this program together and bringing all these great leaders together and producing all those wonderful people who have gone through the program and mentoring people who are now presidents and chancellors and leaders. And it's just, when you think you can't do, it just reminds you of how important it is that you do that, because one person really can make a tremendous difference.
Thank you, Shirley. You're making me cry now, and I have to give remarks.
Cassandra?
I just want to say that in spite of all of our stories on the rough side of the mountain and that we all succeeded, I want these readers to first read the book, and I want you to dream possibilities and achieve your own goals.
Excellent.
Here, here.
Thank you, Cassandra. Thank you so much.
Josie, would you have the final word, please?
I do. And I want to say what I didn't say in my presentation. I didn't give enough acknowledgement to my family, my extended family and my immediate family, my husband of 51 years. I like the fact that Horace talked about his Barbara, a number of years, and then Alex talked about his wife, Gloria. And so it is, I want to mention him by name because he is listening. Carlos, thank you. Thank you for all the hours and hours that you've supported me in working with all of us throughout this process. And I also want to thank all of you. Thank God you were there. And like Alex pointed out, he's still a volunteer. He was right there in that very first program 14 years ago and still a volunteer. And special thanks to all of you who I've, have called upon over and over and over again. And you've never said no. God bless you. Particularly appreciation to Janella Butler. When I thought about all of us and how hard it would be to contain, our comments, I said, how can I tell them not to talk anymore? I can't do it. George, can you do it? So finally we decided that Janella Butler could do it gracefully. And she did it with me because I was going overtime and a few of others went overtime. But Janella, thank God you're there. You've been with us from the very beginning. I'll never forget the first day she walked into the first ELA class 14 years ago. And she was at the time the provost at Spelman, I believe, right, Janella?
Yes.
Yeah. I said, Janella, you've written books on diversity. I'm honored. I'm so, humbled that you come to our program. She said, oh, yes, I want to learn. And so this idea of continuous learning that we all go through, Janella exemplifies that. So thank you, Janella. And that is how I want to close off today's session with the stories from our successful alums. And bless all of you. Thank you for being here. And they say in my culture, un gran corazón que tienen todos. You all have a big heart, the ones that are listening and the ones that are here today. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Josie. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.